In this episode of Explore Omaha, I had the pleasure of speaking with Marla Jenkins. Marla is a Medicare expert. Boy, does she know her stuff. If you need any help with Medicare, she's the one to go to. Good afternoon, Marla. I would like to thank you for taking some of your valuable time to join me on Explore Omaha, my YouTube channel. You are a Medicare professional, and I think there's a lot of confusion around what Medicare is and all the parts and all the definitions and how to get it. I was actually selling a house for some seniors. I overheard them talking about Medicare, and they sounded a little confused themselves. So I really appreciate you helping us dig into what this is.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Medicare and Medicaid, the differences and all that?
Absolutely. There's certainly a lot to it, so that's why I do what I do. Yes, to understand first, Medicare and Medicaid are different. Medicare, I like to think of it as the health care. It's a federal health insurance program. It's designed mostly for seniors, meaning 65 and over, and also for an individual if they are have a medical condition and disabled. Then you could end up being Medicare eligible at any age due to a disability.
Okay.
Versus, so Medicare being your health care, versus Medicaid is aid or assistance. It has nothing to do with age. Medicaid is a federal and state program, joint program, so therefore it is different from state to state, whereas Medicare is the same nationwide. But Medicaid, somebody needs to qualify based on very limited financial resources. So that's going to be based on the poverty level.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And there's times where somebody might be on both, but not necessarily. And that's confusing in itself.
Well, that's why I have you here.
Yes.
So, does everyone have to enroll in Medicare Parts A and B? Can you give us a little breakdown of what A, B, C, all the parts are?
Yes.
I know at 65 people start to think about Medicare, and can you tell us what those are?
Part A, B, C, and D are the main parts of Medicare. Part A, in a snippet, is what they call hospital insurance. It encompasses some more things there, but think of inpatient stay, the bigger stuff. Part B, as in boy, they call medical insurance, which includes a whole lot more. Basically, when I'm sitting down with folks, it's just a lot to understand and remember. And it's taken me, years and years to know and understand this. So what I like to do is when I'm sitting down with somebody one-on-one, I go through, okay, your A is going to fill in these areas, but leave these gaps. Part B is going to fill in these areas, but are going to leave these gaps. And when people see those gaps, they understand that they're going to need probably some other secondary type of policy or insurance to fill in those gaps. And there's different options on that as well. But that's A and B. Then C, and that's what they call original Medicare, by the way, A and B, through the government. Then in the last 20 or 25 years, they've added in C and D. C and D as in dog. Gotten people really confused. The C, Part C, is what they call the Medicare Advantage plans. And so that is, if somebody goes that route, I'm kind of jumping ahead to one of our other conversations here, but if somebody goes to Medicare Part C, what they are doing, and I do this because I'm also kind of help people understand this guide here, the Medicare and You. It's a huge, thick book, but it's pretty overwhelming. So the Medicare Part C is actually an alternative to original Medicare. Okay, so right out of the gates, people are confused. But I help you understand the differences, and then based on your particular scenario, hey, which one's going to be better for you?
Right. Okay. So Medicare Parts A and B it sounds like that's not all you need. There are gaps, and some other supplemental coverages may be needed.
Exactly. A and B, it's good coverage, but it was never designed to be full coverage. And so because there are a lot of gaps, people will choose, a lot of people will choose what's called a Medicare supplement, or another word for that is Medigap. Medicare Supplement, Medigap, to fill in those gaps. Other folks will choose a Medicare Advantage plan, and those are kind of like the bundled plans.
If I choose the C rather than the A or B, or is it and the A and B, or is it or the A and B?
Confusing, isn't it?
Yes.
So if somebody goes the Medicare Advantage route, you still have to have your A and B.
So you have to keep paying for all of that.
Yes, you still need to apply for your Medicare A and B, which means then you will get a card in the mail that looks something like that.
Okay.
And that whole enrollment thing is confusing too, and that's what I help folks with. But if somebody does go the Medicare Advantage route, they still have to have their A and B. It's just that now they're going to say, hey, put that card in a safe place in case you ever go back to original Medicare. But it's not going to work. You're going to now be using the Medicare Advantage card and plan. So your A and B is now administered through that private insurance company.
Okay.
Clear as mud.
Yeah. Geez, I'm glad I have you here today. So obviously you are the expert to talk to. I hear some other people kind of talking about, well, I'm just going to go talk to my homeowner's insurance guy. He knows a little bit about Medicare. Why is it, or why should they come to you versus them?
I can tell you first off, there are, so the guy or gal that helps with your auto and home insurance, that's their specialty. That's what they do day in and day out. There's, they've fine-tuned it.
Right.
Medicare is its own little animal, as you're going to see here, or you're starting to see. Some insurance companies, some major insurance companies, don't even offer Medicare insurance plans, so they're certainly not going to be able to help you. But the few, the ones that do, the auto and home insurance companies that do offer Medicare plans, that is kind of like they're in their back pocket just in case. They really are not typically, not always, but typically they're not real well versed in it. Honestly, they sometimes don't even really want to mess with it because it's so very different than what you're normally looking at. So again, why not go to the specialist that does just Medicare all day long and knows all those fine-tuned nuances, and can foresee ahead of time, oh, that might cause some problems. Let's do this instead, or let's do this earlier, or to navigate the whole system.
Hugely important. I agree with all that. Like, for instance, my dad said, well, I don't need to get any kind of supplements. I'm still healthy. I can get that stuff later. And I said, Dad, you need to really think about, planning for this stuff because, like you said, it might cause some problems later. Am I thinking about that in the right way? You're absolutely right, and I'm glad that you are kind of trying to talk some sense into them but one of the misconceptions is, yes, I'm healthy, I don't need coverage right now. Well, I'll say one thing. Do you have house insurance and yet you've probably never had a fire or a burglary? Right. The likelihood that we are later on in our later years, 70, 75, 80, 85, we're going to have some kind of medical condition or need some kind of treatment or care, pretty likely. Right. The part though that is misconceiving is we hear on TV in the fall every year, review your Medicare and make your changes. Well, the tricky part is that's not the government. That's not original Medicare. Those are the private insurance plans. And again, kind of a whole separate conversation, but that's where the Medicare Supplement is very different than the Medicare Advantage plans. The Medicare Supplement, if that's the route you decide you want to go, you're maybe not eligible to get that later on down the road. And certainly not if you wait until you're, got a condition. That's like getting your car insurance after you have the accident. Thank you. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Interesting. Doesn't work that way, does it? No. So do you find, what are some common questions that you get from people that you help that you think are people should know about? We've kind of covered some of those, understanding the A and the B. The C, as I mentioned, is the Medicare Advantage plans. Those are the ones that can cause a lot of confusion because those are the ones that are different based on location. So my mom in Southwest Iowa is maybe not eligible, or I'm sorry, not offered
are available to her, some of the plans that maybe somebody in Sarpy or Seward County or wherever. Those are the ones though that I would look at your individual scenario, the A, B, C, D, and S's.
Yeah.
That's something that I would definitely work with somebody one-on-one on. And then the D for drug plan, those very confusing and overwhelming. I have a lot of folks that think like, oh, Nancy down the street likes her such and such drug plan company, I'm gonna just go with that. Or even two people in the same household. I'm gonna just take the same drug plan that my husband took. That may or may not be your best route. And that's because each company or each drug plan has their own list of formularies, list of medications that they are or are not covering. So this particular plan might be the best one for Nancy down the road, and it could be the worst one for you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and most people don't.
Yeah.
And then secondly, each of those, and there's 24, I believe, drug plans in our area this year to choose from. So how would you know? And then from there, each of those plans have certain pharmacies that are either preferred pharmacies, standard pharmacies, or just not in the network at all.
Holy cow.
So that can make a huge difference on what you're paying out of pocket as well.
There's so much here. I just started, thinking about it myself. I hear, people I help talk about it, and wow, you are doing them a great service by helping really simplify this and really looking out for what they need and building their plan for them.
That's how I look at it is I'm an advocate for the folks who, people always say, oh gosh, I don't know about how this all works or whatever. And I say, well, why would you? You've never turned 65 before.
Right.
Why would you know this? It's different than your group insurance. And who knew how to figure out the group insurance details anyway, right?
Right.
So.
Can you talk a little bit about cost? I mean, how does that work? I mean, does it cost the same for everybody? Or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Medicare A and B, for most folks, Part A is going to be, I don't like to say free, but it's prepaid. We've paid through our working years, but you're not going to pay additional. Part B, as in boy, is based on household income. So important to know that if you've got, breadwinner and one that's not working, household income is still gonna, but that is gonna be the same nationwide. Okay.
Is it the GAP stuff? Is that like the supplement?
The Medicare supplement, Medigap plans, those can have differences, but it's not based on the person. It's based on, if the same person with a Plan G with XYZ company, they're going to pay the same price, assuming, age and gender and so forth are the same.
We could probably spend another hour and a half.
We could probably spend like 4 days talking.
Yes, and I'd still need your help.
That's why I'm here.
How should someone get a hold of you? Or do you prefer like a phone call, an email?
I love phone calls or emails or text messages. The easiest is MedicareMarla.com. MedicareMarla.com. But yes, you can certainly call me. My number 402-997-0600. I'd love to help you.
That's easy. So much good knowledge here. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was super enlightening.
Good.
But left me with
And you're still confused, so
yes,
I can help you.
Left me with a ton more questions.
And that happens. Yep.
So everybody call Marla. She's a compassionate, kind, thoughtful, really knowledgeable human.
And local, and never a cost to work with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Yes, thank you.